Welcome to People Unlimited now. People Unlimited right fucking now. Welcome. You are unlimited. You are unlimited. That's the first thing that I want you to know. You are unlimited. You are completely free. I cannot believe what is going on in the world. I can believe it. But I can almost not contemplate people's distortion of reality. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll give you some background. I do not watch the news. I don't pay attention to anything, really, other than, there's two things I'm passionate about. Now, doing what I want to do, doing what I love, and right now I am in a little bit of a crisis, not knowing what that is. And then also, I would say helping other people. As long as I can do what I love, which is helping other people, I don't really get anything else that's going on. So, for instance, I know COVID is a thing, but I will forget about it completely because I don't pay attention to anything. And this is hugely liberating, okay? I forget about it completely. I forget about any problem that the news has to offer because literally 0% of my time do I spend watching that or ever seeing anything on it because I don't spend a lot of time on social media or anything. And I feel a lot of people's reactions to that would be like, you have to do that. You have to stay informed because otherwise you don't know what's going on in the world, and you can't be helpful if you don't know what's going on in the world. But as we know, the media doesn't actually tell you anything real, and whatever. Is that a conspiracy? No. You can call it a conspiracy, but there's just, conspiracy is a word that was sort of made up by the media in order for them to have a lock on information. Think about your entire life. They've been locking down all information. You went to school, you weren't allowed to learn about certain things, you had to learn about other things. Why the fuck would they teach you about racism unless they wanted to perpetuate racism? Why the fuck would they teach you about Nazis unless they wanted to perpetuate Nazis? There's no point. You don't teach about negative things to children's minds, which are very impressionable. You don't do that unless you want to create those things. It's simple. And a lot of people aren't going to even understand this and go way above their head. Just some of these simple concepts that I'm throwing out. And this is what I'm saying when I say I don't understand the mindset of people. Because some of the stuff that seems so plain to me, so clear, crystal cut clear, is not so plain, not so crystal cut clear to everybody. People are outraged. People are still going on about Corona. It doesn't exist if you ignore it. And a lot of people are not going to agree with that. And they're going to say, wow, that's the worst thing anyone could ever do, is ignore what's really going on. But what I'm telling you is nothing's really going on. You're just putting your focus into certain aspects. All that's happening on this level of existence is your focus going into certain things. And this is undeniable. So if you think that it's bad to not pay attention to what's happening, then that would be condemning a baby. Because a baby automatically loves life, automatically doesn't know what's happening. A baby is in its natural state of applying focus. All it applies focus to is being here. I am here. That's where its focus goes. Because no one's told it that its focus has to go anywhere else yet. As you get older, your focus... Anyway, people are applying their focus in these really diverted, distorted ways that aren't true. There is no such thing as a disease that's getting everyone sick unless you apply your focus onto that. And I'm not talking about, arguing between two opinions. I'm saying this is unarguable. You cannot argue with the concept that your focus, whatever you're focused on, whatever is inside of your bubble of awareness, is what is true for you. If I am in the forest my whole life and I never have a social interaction, if I never see the news, if I never see any media, the forest is my bubble, right? Undeniable. If you are here focusing on all of the things that you're told to be focusing on, that's your bubble. So it's not between, this is not an argument. There's simple facts of life, and it's not opinion based. You can go on and on about, like, I see, like, people, like, one of the ones is, and I don't pay attention, but I just from being around people occasionally, I get little glimpses of, like, this societal mind, where it's like, okay, the Confederate flag, let's say. Some people think you shouldn't be allowed to have the Confederate flag, whatever. Some, rednecks have it on their cars, or they have it on the back of their t-shirt. Some people think you shouldn't have it. Some people think you should have it. Some people think it stands for slavery. Some people think it stands for freedom. Oh, but here are the actual facts. Oh, but here's some more actual facts. Whatever side you're on, you love it. First of all, you love that. Or else you wouldn't be involved in it. You wouldn't be applying your focus to it. You love that dialogue. For some whatever reason, that gets you going. If it's negative or positive, it gets you going. And so you're applying your focus to something like that, and you'll go, I'm right, and the other person will say, I'm right, but those are opinions, first of all. I'm right, those are opinions, but then there's there's the reality of the situation, which is the Confederate flag exists, period. Boom. The whole thing is solved. The Confederate flag exists, period. It has no inherent meaning, period. Unless you want to assign meaning to a bunch of fucking lines. Like, seriously, we need to step out and look at things as how they actually are, and not, well, that only applies if you're, of course, you know what I mean? It doesn't have any meaning, period. There's no argument. But it brings up these feelings in certain people. It doesn't have any meaning, period. It does have meaning, period. If you give it meaning. It does have meaning, period. There's no argument. You know what I'm saying? Both people are completely correct. Both people are completely wrong. And you can step outside and see that and go, okay, so now it's just about where I'm applying my focus. Because Trump, Biden. Here's the facts of the matter, people. Trump exists. Biden exists. There's people who like Trump. There's people who like Biden. There's no argument to be had. Joe Rogan said the N-word. Oh boy. Oh boy. Are we fucking like babies? We're not. Who the fuck cares? Nobody except for you. And I guess I'm getting passionate about this, so I obviously have an opinion on it, right? You might be able to feel a biased opinion on some of these subjects. But my biased opinion of it is an opinion, not fact. Fact is undeniable. And the fact is so inherently obvious in every situation. The facts of the matter. And so, the weird thing is, I'm very caught up in just like, how do I live my life in service to other people? How do I live the best life I possibly can while I'm here on this plane of existence? How do I perpetuate others' joy? And like, that's my focus, you know? And it also goes with just like, how do I feel good right now, right? And the instant gratification thing. So I'm stuck between those two places because I don't know exactly how to apply myself. And so a lot of times I'll end up feeling, a lot of a lot of shame and a lot of like sadness because I feel like I don't have worth in this society or whatever, because I'm not contributing in any way right now. But then I remember that I haven't been paying attention to anything, and then if I catch a little of what's happening, I realize, wow, I'm so outside of all that, and I really have this authentic view to share with people. And I really have this authentic relationship with life. And, not that I'm not better than anybody, but I have this, what I believe to be an aligned view on most things. And if you don't know what I'm sort of getting at here, and if it seems a little confusing, that's all right. There's something that you could deny and you could argue with, but that pretty much I've taken for a fact in this reality. And that is, we're not animals, we're not here to die. We can't die. We're invincible. We cannot die. Our bodies can die, but we are not our bodies. Try and find your body, or try and find yourself in your body. Where are you in your body? And it'll take some practice, because you'll say that you're in the mind, first off, that you're in the mind, but you don't know that. And if you apply yourself to this, it's not an argument, if you apply yourself to it, you'll just have the realization that you're not this body. And even you'll have the realization that you don't even know how to talk. So it's something I realized, and it's really liberating. You aren't talking. Like, if you start talking, you're just talking, and you just kind of pay attention to how you're talking, maybe listen to it, you're aware that you are talking, you're not thinking before you're talking, you're just talking. It just sort of comes, and it sort of starts to feel less and less and less like you're actually doing it, and more like you're just viewing it. Because that is what's happening. You have control over it, but you're not doing it. That's sort of how everything goes. You're simply aware. You're aware. And your awareness, this awareness that you already are, you're always aware. Anytime you've done anything, you've been aware. You're always aware of the situation. And so this awareness is what everyone is. Everyone is this awareness. And if you cut all of the thoughts, all of the projections, all of the things that you think you are, precisely you're thinking them, you cut all of that out, you're just aware. And the person sitting next to you is also just aware. And so there's no difference between being aware and being aware. And thus, everyone is the same. Doesn't matter if you're, this is so obvious. Doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter if you're a girl, if you're a boy. Doesn't matter if you, want to be a fox, or you want to be, what I'm saying. Doesn't matter if you're gay, or transgender, or we're all just aware. And that all that other stuff, what am I? It's all great and it's all beautiful, but it's not us. We're just aware, and we're in fucking vehicles. And, this idea of racism that's going around, right now, this big racism thing, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, because the only time I've ever felt racist is when people were bringing it up. and talking about how this thing called racism exists. It doesn't really exist unless you perpetuate its existence. And that's my point with people. I don't care what side. If you're on the side of I'm not racist, if you're on the side of I am racist, you're equal with the racist. If you're not racist, you're equal with the racist. If you're on the subject, you're equal with other people on the subject. The subject doesn't exist. It's simple fact. You can't deny it. That we all exist, that we're all aware, and there's no difference between our awarenesses. You can add whatever else you want on top of that, but it's untrue. It's a distortion. We're all aware. There's no difference between you and a fucking dog. The vehicle is different. The method of communication is different. The density of consciousness is different. But essentially, you're not any different. A dog is aware, right? If you don't think a dog is aware that it's here, then how can it be here? You know, a dog is aware that it's here. You're aware that you're here. A cat is aware that it's here. You're aware that you're here. A tree must be aware that it's here in order to function. If it wasn't aware that it existed, how could it function? If your cells in your body weren't aware that they existed, how could they function? If you weren't aware that you existed, how could you function? If you didn't know you existed, which isn't possible, you wouldn't exist. That's the only other, either you exist or you don't exist. And like seriously, like if we zoom out of all of our like weird fucking creations, there is only that. It's literally that simple. You can get as complex as you want, but it really is that simple. It either exists or it doesn't exist. And so, racism, let's have a huge argument. It's as simple as it exists or it doesn't exist. You choose. An argument about racism is a perpetuation of racism. You shouldn't be racist. You are therefore perpetuating its existence by believing that it exists. A conversation about it at all is a perpetuation of it. So me talking about it right now,
French door refrigerator,
is me talking about it right now is a perpetuation of it, and I'm involved in it because I'm going to start that dialogue with somebody. And that's why most of the time I ignore the dialogues completely, because ignorance is bliss, and that is true. And what are you searching for in life if not bliss? Are you searching for knowledge and tormentedness? What are you searching for in life if not bliss? Ignorance is bliss. And we're already all completely ignorant. Any knowledge is an illusion in a big way. Knowledge is elucidatory. Elusive. There's many ideas. There's so many ideas. There's so many opinions, so many ideas. But the basis of those ideas are built on an unstable foundation. Because when we came into this world, our parents started telling us false things. Our schools purposely indoctrinated us with untrue concepts and completely made up things, embellished. They teach you to be a liar. And it's hard because I don't want to get into anything that I don't want to perpetuate, but I also want people to have a perspective. If you don't have any perspective, I want you to have some perspective, but I don't want to get into anything that I don't want to perpetuate. So it's a weird ground. Because I know what happens is I start to feel like, because once again, like, I don't have much contact or pay much attention to normal life, and how much can we really know? Like I said in the beginning, is what I sort of start to feel. It's like, how much can I really know? Even if I talk to somebody every day, I would only ever get such a small portion of reality. How much can we really know? That's how I feel about this sometimes. But there's lots of resources you can go to help this understanding, if this interests you. Bentino Mazzaro on YouTube is really great. He's an enlightenment teacher. Right now I'm just sort of babbling about, but what the goal is, sort of enlightenment. But what I've come to realize is a lot of people I'm not at like some crazy high level of understanding. I don't feel like, because I've always understood this stuff, but I know that it might be very valuable for me to talk about this for other people, because it may be a higher level of understanding than some people are at. I don't know if, I'm not really to say. But I like to look at things as they are, without opinions. And I think whenever an opinion starts up, it really starts to get confusing. And it really starts to get complicated. And it really starts to get not fun. And it really starts to get distorted from the truth of existence. And there's so many truths that we've been told, maybe even in school we've been told some truths. Like, take Einstein, telling us that there's no time. That's overlooked a lot. Way too much, actually. Like, it's really like a hip thing, I think, to be like, there's no such thing as time, yo. But then you're like, well, I gotta go to work at 8:30 on Monday. And so you're perpetuating time. So it's like hip to be like, there's no such thing as time. But then also live by time every day, which is fine, obviously. You have, like, our current reality is, like, you have to be sort of involved in it, because you are here. But yeah, it's there's no such thing as time, And it's really easy to forget that and get caught up in this thing called time. But really, everything is right now. Everything has always been right now. There's no such thing as back or forward. You're always right now in the same position. It's like in a video game. If you've ever seen, like, a really basic video game, or sort of known how a video game works, where you're moving around a 3D environment, right? But you're not actually moving. You're always in the same spot. The 3D environment is moving around your character. And some of the really early ones, I'm not sure if it still works like that, but I would assume, since you're, a video game not really inside of any space. You're not actually in a space. You're not actually in three-dimensional space. You're in, code. You're in hardware. So that illusion of space is the same with our illusion of time. You're only ever in that one place in the video game. You're only ever, everything appears like it's moving, but it's actually moving around you, You aren't moving through these things. You're always placed right in the middle of the experience going on around you. And you might wonder what the practicality of any of this is. You're like, okay, this is great, or whatever. Like, maybe some of these concepts, maybe some of this dialogue has got you like thinking a little bit, but you might not. You might wonder what the practicality of it is, and I'm telling you, it's everything. It's actually, we're one of the only existing beings that are confused about this stuff. Like, animals aren't confused about time, you know? Animals aren't confused about what they are. They are here. They're not confused about time. They don't have a concept of time. They're here, they exist, they keep existing. They're not afraid of dying because they know they can't die. Because death isn't real except for us. Like, we're the only people who actually think death is a thing. We're the only beings who think death is a thing. And in America especially, I think that we are one of the only societies that thinks death is a real thing. I don't think around the world we're in a weird bubble where we think we can die. I don't think many places around the world they actually believe you can die because they know a little more than we do. We're up on our high horse here in America. We're very, obsessed with knowledge instead of fact, instead of truth. And not fact like most people put it, like a tree is atoms. Fact, not like that, because that's not a fact. The unobserved is a fact. What is already here is a fact. You are aware. You cannot dispute that. Why would you talk and argue about something that you can dispute? Anyway. But yeah, we can't die. This is obvious to me, and it's been obvious to me for a while, that you can't die. And I often forget. I feel like everyone, because once something becomes very obvious for you, it's very easy to forget that nobody else really knows this. So if this is the one takeaway you can get from this weird random rant video, it's I don't like to talk about this a lot, but you can't die. And for me, I don't even need to explain that statement, but I'm thinking I probably do for other people. So I'll explain it for a second. What do you mean you can't die? Maybe you've seen somebody die who's close to you. Maybe, a pet has died. And what I mean by that is, we can take it back. So, you're conscious, right? We're talking about being here right now. You're conscious. You know you exist. You cannot deny that you know that you exist. Now, if you can remember something from, your youngest memory, remember back when you were as little as you can remember. And back then, you knew that you existed. The exact same amount, with the exact same amount of awareness. So it's been 20 years, 50 years, 30 years, whatever. It's been since that memory. You were still the exact same amount of aware that you were here. There's no difference. There's no difference in natural intelligence, the awareness of being. There's no difference in that. That never changes. Now, you've been told that when you turn, 80, 75, whatever, that you are going to die. And death has been explained as a lack of existence. But it's such a silly concept. So you think that your parents had sex, you were born, boom, you exist, you die, you stop existing. And that is such a man-made, American-made concept. It doesn't exist in nature. Obviously, death of a vehicle exists. Death of this physical vehicle is confirmed with the senses. But when somebody dies, does their body die? Immediately. No. Their body can actually still be moving after they're dead. You can cut somebody's head off, right? And the body's still moving. You could, the body also doesn't, it's not like the body goes and disappears either, right? The body stays here. So if it's the body that you're obsessed with, then there's no problem there because the body doesn't disappear. So it's not like the body disappears. So no, you're actually obsessed with the consciousness. Because if we actually were contained in our bodies, then when we died, the bodies or the part of us that we were would cease to exist. But nothing ceases to exist when someone dies. Simply, the body is now without consciousness. Without that particular consciousness, right? The body is going to be there for years. It's going to rot, and then there's going to be bones, and it's going to be there for years and years and years. So if you have, if you're missing, somebody dies, first of all, it's not the body that dies, although the body does, start to disappear slowly. But it's not the body that's gone. That's what my point is. It's the soul, if you will, the consciousness that's gone from the body. And this consciousness, as you've known from what we just did with the memory, has not changed since you were a little kid. It has not moved. It's never been any different. It's always been the same. And, you should really feel good at this point. Like, wow, wait a minute, can you die? Because, think about what happens when you die. Like, if you picture what happens when you die, right? In your mind, think of after you're dead, okay? So, your last breath, you breathe it, boom, you're gone. Do you cease to exist? Or does something still exist? So right now, kill yourself is what I'm saying. Not physically. In your mind, bring yourself to that place where you're dead. And notice that something still exists. And it might be blackness. It might be emptiness. It might be nothingness. But is that not an existence? Nothingness can't exist because nothingness is something. Nothingness is actually something. True nothingness is actually everything. So it's a little bit confusing. But if you realize that no one has ever experienced nothing, ever, 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 ever. No one has ever proven nothing. In fact, it's the only thing that no one has ever seen, ever. You've never experienced nothing. No one ever has experienced nothing, because it's impossible to experience that which does not exist. Nothing would be a lack of existence, as well as a lack of everything else. And that's just not possible. Not possible to prove, because as soon as you try and prove it, you've made something. As soon as you try to explain it, you've made something. As soon as you try to rest in it or try to visualize it, you're visualizing something, you're resting in something. And so this idea of death is very, very silly when you really look at it, because they're telling you that there was nothing, then there was something, and then there will be nothing again, which is silly. It really is silly. No one has ever experienced nothing in this reality, and no one can ever experience nothing. And so you could easily say, well, that's what death is. Death is that nothing. At the end of this life of experiencing, where that doesn't exist ever. Death is nothing. But why do you think that? That's my question. Why do you think that? The only reason you think that is because somebody told you that. And somebody told you that because somebody else told them that. Because they made it up. Because they saw something die. And they said, wow, now that goes into nothing. But nothing's never been experienced by anybody. So how could you ever say that it exists if it's the only thing? You could literally make up anything else, which is why we have all of the ideas of like heaven and hell and these different ideas. Those are actually more intelligent ideas than nothing, because nothing is the only thing that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The only thing. It really is. Nothing does not exist, and that's beautiful. At the same time, if you get real deep into resting as what you are, you'll realize that, I'm not claiming to be anything that I'm not, but I have started to feel into what I really am, which is sort of this empty space, this emptiness. And so everything does come from nothing on another sense, but it's not really nothing, because nothing just isn't possible. It just isn't possible. Like, think about space. Like, blank space. Not black, not white, not gray. Blank space is still something. Like, if you could die, if the universe is infinite and you're part of this infinite universe, and the infinite universe contains nothing, you would be able to at least tap into that, because you can tap in anything with your mind. Because you are that infinity. You can tap into things that don't exist. You can imagine something flying. You can imagine something that's never been in existence before. And how can you do that unless you are infinite? But my point is, you can't imagine nothing. It's not something that you can conjure up, because by definition it's not experienceable, because it's nothing. So that's just my point. And my other point would be that if death did exist, and let's say death is nothing, the most comparable thing we would have to that is sleep. And a lot of us really like sleep. I don't think anybody denies that sleep is awesome. Like, wow, it feels good to sleep, right? So if death really is nothing, and we can compare it to something in our lives, which is sleep, which is just sort of, sleep just, you go to sleep, you wake up, it doesn't really exist. It's sort of this, boom, like no time. When you're sleeping, time doesn't exist. Some nights you can sleep and it was like, what the fuck? I didn't even go to sleep. Like, I just woke up in the morning. And then some nights it's like you were sleeping forever, almost. Like you were always asleep. And then you wake up and you're like, what the fuck? I thought nothing, you know what I mean? So if that's death, if sleep is likened to death, which is what if we have an idea of death, it would be sleep, our conventional idea of death. Sleep is blissful, you know what I mean? It definitely is. So why would we be afraid of dying? Dying would therefore be, by our own definitions, absolutely awesome. So either way you look at it, like, that's why our idea of it is so silly, because we have this idea of it where we think it's nothing, but we also think that it's like this pain almost. Like, oh, I'm going to die, and I'm going to, like, you're like, what happens when you die? Well, nothing. You just die. But then you also are afraid of it because it's like, well, I'm going to lack everything I love. So that sort of implies that you're going to exist afterwards, because in order to lack something, you need to first exist to lack it. So we actually have two concepts of death held simultaneously. We have a fear of it because secretly we know that there's something after, and we have a, well, nothing happens when you die. Like, and I know a lot of people still have this, and I want to help those people because this is one of those concepts that is fucking done. Like, fuck, it's done. Like, this does not apply to us anymore. Death doesn't exist. We need to get out of that mindset. We're not here to survive. We're not here to just survive. That's ridiculous. I think, like, that idea alone could just, like, if people could get that, and it's so obvious, too, like, and if you don't understand it completely, I'm not trying to put you down for not understanding it by saying it's obvious, but what I mean is it is naturally intelligent. This is natural. And when you're a baby, you don't think you can die. And, you know, I can hear arguments. You know, my mind likes to generate up these cynics. But like I said before, there's certain things that you cannot argue that are undeniable. And I'm not talking about physical things. I'm talking about certain concepts that are undeniable. You can't deny that you're here to exist, that you exist here. Because if you denied that, it would be a proof that you exist here. You have to exist to deny. And so the fear of death would be a fear of a lack of existence. But you'd have to exist in order to lack existence. To know that you lacked existence, you would have to exist. So if you're afraid of dying, you're afraid of nothing, first of all. Like, literally, you're afraid of something that doesn't exist. And you have the idea that it's nothing, so you're afraid of nothing. Nothing. You're afraid of nothing. And that's where all of your fear is generated from. Nothing? What? Do you know what nothing is? Nothing is nothing. Nothing doesn't have an effect on something. So, yeah. You know, it's like, that's great, and that's liberating, and I'd like more people to understand that, because I look around, and I know everybody knows it inherently, like, but we hold these two ideas, and I think that alone probably creates a lot of stuff for us. And so, like, the no death, I love to talk about it. And you know, that's, yeah, that's it. Well, we'll call this one good. 43 minutes. That's a good length for a rant. So enjoy. People unlimited now. You are unlimited now. Let yourself be unlimited. Whatever you're doing, you cannot die. You have infinite potential. You have infinite time to do whatever you want on any fucking planet in the universe, because you will incarnate as everything eventually, and you have nothing to be scared of. It doesn't matter if you fucking sit on the couch all day and don't do a thing and you're wasting your life. It doesn't matter, because eventually you're going to be Christopher Columbus, exploring America and killing babies. So just know that you are everything. You are going to be everything. You have already been everything. You are expanding, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're going to be here forever, and we're already in heaven, and it doesn't matter if you feel like you're in hell, you're still in heaven. Yeah. That's empowering. That's people unlimited. Now, be unlimited. Do what you want. If you know what you want, boom, go for it. Because there's some of us who have a little bit of a difficulty knowing what we want. And we're ready to go for it, but we don't exactly know what we want. So if you know what you want, boom, you're already a step ahead of a lot of people. So go for that shit. Like, if you know you're passionate about something and you're not doing that thing, I don't know why you're not. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Just do it. It's literally a brand. We need to hear it over and over and over again. Doesn't matter what it is. You're passionate about it. Do it. All right. People Unlimited now. Goodbye.